All right. I started to ask you a little bit about how you know Binky. You said you've known him for about 20 years. Yes. During that 20-year period, you were incarcerated for a lot of that, right? Yes. Okay. When you were not incarcerated, would you hang out with Binky? Would you certainly socialize? Or is it just someone you knew from the street? No. From time to time. From time to time, we socialized, hung out. Like I knew him. I know him. What was the last thing you said, sir? I said I knew him. I said I know him. Like, for real. The same way. And sometimes you would hang out or socialize. Okay. What would that entail? Sometimes coming around and looking for weed. Or like I say, sometimes I say most times I pulled up and all them is together. They probably playing football in the street. Stuff like that. Riding a dirt bike up and down the street. Or I say sometimes we might, like I say, we had to, over a period of time, it varies. Like sometimes we might sit and play the game, or it varies over a period of time. This is you and Binky? Yeah, me, Binky. Or like I say, it's other people's outside or what, like people's would be outside. Okay, and when you say outside, where are you talking about? Are you talking about Baltimore? Yes. And what part of Baltimore? Sandtown. Okay. Where are you from, sir? Sandtown. Okay. Is that where you grew up? Yes. I'm going to show you Government Exhibit P1. You can see it on your monitor there. Do you recognize that individual? Yes. And who is that? Tanner. How do you know Tanner? From being around the way. From being around the way. From being around the way. Yes, from being around the way. I met him a few years ago. You met him a few years ago. Was your relationship with Tanner the same as it was for Binky? No. Okay. Were you friends with Tanner? Yeah, we was associates. Okay. We was associates. We ain't never had no disagreements or nothing like that. When you saw Tanner, where would you see him? It varies. Around the neighborhood. Did you see him in Sandtown or other places? In Sandtown, around the neighborhood. Okay. Would you ever see Binky and Tanner together? Sometimes. Did you ever talk to Binky about BGF and your level of participation in BGF? No. I mean, him and me never talk about, like, when he came home at 13, I was already home about 18 months. So by the time he came home, I already was in the process of, like, not interacting and not, like, going to meetings and stuff like that. So, like, when he came home, he was feeling like me for real. Like, as far as he wasn't. Objection. Sustained. So, rephrase it. Let me focus you a little bit. So did Binky ever have a conversation with you about whether or not he wanted to continue to participate in BGF or if he had other interests? Yes, he. Objection. Asked and answered. Yes. Yes. Are we going someplace new? Yes. Because I thought this. Yes. Yes, Your Honor. Okay. What's the new part? Go ahead and answer. Yeah, it's basically when we talked about it, he was trying to get away from it. Okay. In this time period that you were home in 2014, 2015, were you involved in drug trafficking? Yes. I was down South Baltimore though. I wasn't hustling up Sandtown. By hustling, what do you mean? Selling drugs. Okay. If you weren't just selling drugs in Sandtown, where were you selling drugs? Down South Baltimore. What type of drugs were you selling? Heroin, coke, crack. Did you ever approach or talk to Binky about selling drugs with you in South Baltimore? Years ago. He wasn't interested in it. He wasn't interested. Okay. Why wasn't he interested? Objection. Did he say why he wasn't interested? Yeah. Basically, his heart wasn't into it. Basically, when I came to him on the tip like we can get some money. Like, these motherfuckers will listen to you, this, that, and the third, or whatever. But basically, he was like, man, I tell you, man, my heart ain't in that shit right now. Like, that wasn't his interest for real. So we never really pressed the issue. But a few times I had said something to him, but he wasn't feeling it, the hustling. Okay, his heart wasn't in it. Okay. I'm going to show you an exhibit, Government's Exhibit P14. Do you recognize the individual on your screen? Yes. Who is that? Beezy. Beezy. How do you know Beezy? From around the neighborhood. Is he from Sandtown? Yes. How long have you known him? About 15, 20 years. How would you describe your relationship? Friends? Associates? Just someone you recognize? It's hard to say friends or associates for real. I'm going to say something like, I ain't been around them in so long, so let's say somebody I knew from around the way. Okay. You said you hadn't seen him in a while. When was the last time you saw him approximately? Probably 2004. Okay. Do you know if he's alive or deceased? Deceased. Did you ever have conversations with Beezy about Binky? No. Let me rephrase that. Did Beezy ever talk about Binky? He used to say this little like Shorty was crazy for coming outside with all that money on his head. Objection, Your Honor. He would just say, hold on 1 second. Wait a minute. What's the basis? May we approach? Okay. All right. So, sir, we were talking about a conversation that you had with Beezy. First, before we get into that conversation, you mentioned you hadn't seen him since 2004, or you hadn't hung out with him since 2004. When does this conversation take place? You talking about 2004 or one of the last times I seen him? You said you knew that Beezy was dead. Is that right? Yeah, but you said the last time I seen him was 2004, and you said something about with that conversation. I said it wasn't what you talking about, 2004 or the last time I seen him. The last time you saw him. When was the last time you saw him before he died? You said where? When? Probably like 2 weeks or 10 days. 2 weeks before he died. Okay. And when did he die, approximately? Approximately, I think it was like the beginning of January. Of what year? 15. Okay. So this conversation took place sometime at the end of 2014 or early January 2015? Yes. Okay. And you started to talk about how Beezy was talking about Binky. Is that right? Yes. And what did he say? He wasn't even directly talking to me, but he was just repeating out loud that my shorty crazy for keep coming around here like he ain't got all that money on his head. Or just that, and basically he was crazy for keep coming around with that money on his head. And what did you understand him to mean? Money on his head. I guess he had a hit. Okay. Binky had a hit? Yes. Okay. Where did you hear Beezy say these things? I think we was on Calhoun Street, or we was standing on the corner. Were you outside? Yes.